In life, we often encounter people who don't talk much, don't show off their talents, and don't compete, yet they are well liked wherever they go and trusted by everyone they work with. They don't need to introduce themselves, prove their abilities, or insist on being right. Their presence brings a feeling of comfort and reassurance. Others want to be around them, cooperate with them, and are willing to listen. The ancients called this a wise, humble person. Humility here doesn't mean lowering oneself or appearing weak. Rather, it means understanding one's own value to the point where there's no need to show it off. A wise person understands that the more one tries to show off, the more distance one creates. The more one boasts, the more others become wary. Conversely, composure and moderation open people's hearts. Humble and wise people always know how to position themselves appropriately. They don't push their way to the top to surpass others, but neither do they retreat to the point of losing their principles. They listen more than they speak and observe more than they react. Because of this, they understand the true feelings, anxieties, and desires of the person they are interacting with. This understanding allows them to speak less but speak accurately, and to do less but do the right thing. Ancient wisdom holds that the more one understands people's hearts, the less need there is for competition. Because they know that trust doesn't come from winning or losing, but from a sense of security. When surrounded by humble people, others don't fear comparison, belittling, or judgment. And only when fear is gone can people truly trust. Humility is also an expression of inner strength. Those who lack inner strength need constant affirmation. Those who are strong enough remain calm. They are neither overly excited by praise nor shaken by criticism. This stability inspires confidence in others when working with them, sharing ideas, and relying on them. This video will help you understand why the more humble a person is, the easier it is to win people's hearts. It's not through tactics or tricks, but through character honed over time, through observations from ancient times and relatable examples in life. You will see that humility doesn't diminish you, but rather earns you lasting respect. If you want to build lasting relationships without constantly trying to prove yourself, if you want to live a lighter life while still maintaining a place in people's hearts, then listen until the end to fully understand the value of humility. And don't forget to subscribe to the Simple Philosophy channel to learn together how to live a more profound and sustainable life every day.
1. The ancients said that humility is not about lowering oneself, but about knowing one's place. This is a very profound understanding, but it is often misunderstood in modern life. Many people think humility means being submissive all the time, stepping back to let others advance, and hiding one's abilities to avoid drawing attention. But the ancients never taught people to live in such a small way. Humility, according to ancient wisdom, is first and foremost about being aware of one's own position. Knowing where one is at a certain stage of life, knowing one's strengths and weaknesses, knowing what to say and what to remain silent about, knowing when to advance and when to retreat. It is a profound understanding of oneself, not self-denial. People who belittle themselves often do so because of a lack of self-confidence. They fear being judged. They fear being scrutinized. So they choose to retreat to avoid risk. But humble people with wisdom are different. They are not afraid of the gaze of others, because they don't need to affirm their value with words. Their value lies in their actions and long-term consistency. Ancient wisdom holds that those who don't know their place easily overstep their boundaries. They aspire to high positions before they are capable to teach others before they have enough experience, and to compete for superiority before they are fully established. Such individuals, even with talent, are unlikely to gain lasting trust because they create a sense of insecurity for those around them. Conversely, Those who know their place are not in a hurry. They don't try to push their way to the front when it's not their turn. They don't try to show off when it's not necessary. They don't try to speak just to get attention. They observe, they learn, and they only speak when their words truly have value. It is this timeliness that gives their words weight. Humility also means knowing your limits. It's knowing that there are things you're not yet qualified to decide on, and areas you don't understand well enough to judge. A humble person isn't afraid to say they don't know, aren't sure, or need to learn more. In contrast, someone lacking confidence is hesitant to admit it, and often tries to cover it up by talking too much. Ancient wisdom teaches that knowing your place is the foundation of all progress. When you clearly understand your current position, you will know which direction to go, what you need to learn. And you won't get caught up in comparing yourself to others, because everyone has a different journey. Comparison only confuses the mind and leads to disorientation. Humble and wise people don't look down on others. They understand that everyone has their own strengths at their own stage in life. They don't use their current position to impose their will or their experience to dismiss others' paths. This creates a great sense of respect. In the workplace, those who know their place won't overstep their boundaries, shirk responsibility, or take credit for things that aren't their turn. They fulfill their assigned tasks and are ready to assist when needed. This attitude earns them trust and leads to increased responsibilities over time. In relationships, humility means not putting yourself above others, but also not allowing yourself to be underestimated. It means knowing your own worth and quietly maintaining it. There's no need to show off or prove anything. Others will sense it through your consistent behavior. The ancients highly valued moderation. Moderation in speech, in action, in emotion. Humility is moderation. It's not so high as to offend, not so low as to lose oneself. Being in the right place is enough. Those who lack humility often fall into two extremes, either arrogance or low self-esteem. Both stem from a lack of self-understanding. Arrogance is overestimating oneself. Low self-esteem is underestimating oneself. Humility is seeing reality accurately and accepting it calmly. The ancients said that wise people always learn to stand in the right place. When they stand in the right place, they don't need to compete, push, or hold on. Everything comes naturally. Reputation is like that. Respect is like that too. When you know where you stand, you won't rush. You won't be impatient. You won't feel insecure when you see others moving faster. You understand that each steady step is more important than speed, and it is that stability that creates lasting appeal. Humility, therefore, doesn't make you smaller. It puts you in the right place. And in the right place, you don't need to struggle. You don't need to be defensive. You don't need to prove yourself. People will naturally open up because they sense stability and trustworthiness from you. The ancients did not teach people to bow down to others. They taught people to bow down to the truth about themselves. Once you understand where you stand, all your actions will become gentle. And that is the deepest foundation for winning people's hearts in a lasting way. 2. Boastful people often lack inner security. Humble people are usually content within. This is something the ancients observed early on when looking at how people present themselves in a crowd. Outward boasting may seem like confidence, but inwardly it often hides unresolved insecurities. Boastful people need to talk a lot about themselves because they fear others won't see their value. They fear being forgotten. They fear being underestimated. They fear not being outstanding enough among others. Therefore, they must constantly reiterate their achievements, show off their abilities, count their accomplishments, not to share, but to reassure themselves that they still have value. Ancient wisdom holds that boasting is a sign of an unstable mind. When one's inner self is not yet complete, they seek validation from the outside. A compliment, an admiring glance, public recognition will become temporary nourishment for their deficient ego. But because it is temporary, they must repeat it constantly. Conversely, humble people usually don't have that need. Not because they are inferior, but because they already know their own worth. They don't need others to remind them, prove themselves, or compare them to others. Their inner fulfillment allows them to remain calm in the face of praise or criticism. The ancients said that those who are content don't need to show off. Only those who lack need to boast. When a person has experienced enough challenges, enough trials, enough self-affirmation, they no longer care what others think. They know what they can do and what they haven't yet accomplished. This clarity brings them peace of mind. People who boast are often very sensitive to judgment. Even a small criticism can provoke a strong reaction. Lack of attention can also upset them. This is because their inner selves are overly dependent on external feedback. When that validation doesn't come, they feel empty. Meanwhile, humble people are less easily swayed. They don't see praise as vital proof. They don't see criticism as a threat. They accept both with moderation, because the roots of their value lie within, not in the mouths of others. Ancient people placed particular importance on inner security, because those who lack inner security are prone to extreme behavior. They might overstate things, overact, or overreact, and not because of a major situation, but because of inner instability. Even if these people are talented, they are difficult to trust in the long term because they create a sense of instability. Humble people are the opposite. They bring a feeling of ease, no pressure, no need to compete. When around them, others don't have to strain to compare themselves to them. They don't have to worry about being surpassed or looked down upon. It is this very feeling that makes them likable. Humility also reveals an inner self that has weathered enough trials. Those who haven't experienced much often want to prove themselves. Those who have experienced enough often choose silence. Not because they have nothing more to say, but because they understand that speaking is enough. The ancients said that a full heart is like a vase already full of water. There's no need to shake it to let others know it's full. Just leave it alone, and others will know it's full. Conversely, an empty vase often makes a loud noise when disturbed. The same is true of boasting. In the workplace, boastful people often want immediate recognition, instant results, and public acknowledgement. Humble people focus on doing their job well. Don't rush for credit, but when the results are clear, credibility comes naturally. In relationships, boastful people tend to talk a lot about themselves, listen little, and pay little attention to others' feelings. Humble people listen more and observe more because they don't need to turn the conversation into a stage for themselves. This makes them more trustworthy. The ancients did not deny ability. They only warned against showing off ability when one's inner strength is insufficient. Because when one's inner self is lacking, the more one flaunts it outwardly, the more one will reveal their true nature. And the more one flaunts, the more likely one is to lose people's favor. Those who are rich in inner substance are not afraid of being overshadowed, are not afraid of others being better than them. They are not afraid of not being noticed. They understand that true value is not lost simply because it is not spoken of, and truly discerning people will recognize this without being prompted. Humility, therefore, is not a strategy for gaining affection. Rather, it is the natural state of an inner self that has reached a state of stability. When the inside is at peace, the outside naturally becomes calm. When there is no longer a lack and no need to show off, the ancients considered this a sign of maturity. Maturity isn't about saying many good things, but about not needing to say much to prove oneself. When one reaches that state, life becomes lighter. Relationships become lighter, and people naturally turn towards them in a lasting way. 3. Humility helps others feel at ease. There's no comparison, there's no pressure. This is one of the underlying reasons why humble people are well liked wherever they go. Ancient wisdom considered the sense of security a person provides far more important than talent or eloquence. In life, people are constantly making comparisons, comparing status, abilities, and recognition. Though unspoken, the feeling of being compared can easily cause people to shrink back. When around someone who likes to show off, to boast, to prove themselves, the other person finds it difficult to relax because they constantly feel like they are being weighed down. Humility, on the other hand, is the opposite. Humble people don't make themselves the center of attention. They don't make others look down on them. They don't create an atmosphere of invisible rivalry. And around them, others don't have to strain to prove themselves. They don't have to worry about being inferior. They don't have to fear being judged. The ancients said that winning people's hearts begins with making them feel safe. Safe here doesn't mean sheltering or protecting them, but rather a feeling of not having their value threatened. Humility is the most powerful way to create that feeling. Humble people don't boast about their achievements, or they don't talk too much about their abilities. They don't try to be right. This makes others feel respected. They aren't put in an inferior position. They aren't subjected to subtle comparisons. And therefore, they are more likely to open up. In the workplace, humble people are often trusted by their colleagues. Not because they are the best, but because they don't make others feel inferior. They share their opinions without imposing them, offer constructive criticism without belittling them, and achieve success without showing off. This helps the team feel secure working together. Conversely, talented but unhumble individuals easily create invisible pressure. Even if they don't intend to, the way they speak, the way they present themselves, and the way they reiterate their achievements can make others feel inadequate. This accumulated pressure eventually creates distance. The ancients were very insightful in realizing that people don't fear those who are talented, but rather those who are talented yet make them feel insignificant. Humility eliminates that feeling of insignificance. It tells others that you have your own value, and that I don't need to bring you down to prove I'm superior. Humility also helps reduce pressure in communication. When a person doesn't try to show off, the conversation becomes more relaxed. It's no longer a competition to see who knows more, who has more experience, or who is more successful. Instead, it becomes an equal sharing of experiences. This makes relationships more sustainable. Ancient wisdom holds that those who inspire confidence in others are virtuous. This is because they don't use their advantages to create distance. They allow those around them to be themselves, without masks, defenses, or competition. Humility also encourages others to speak the truth. When around someone who always acts superior, others become wary of what they say, fearing judgment and contempt. But when around a humble person, they are more likely to share their difficulties, readily admit their shortcomings, and learn from them, because they are not afraid of being belittled. The same applies within families. Humble parents don't use their position to impose their will, don't use their experience to dismiss their children's feelings. They listen more. As a result, children feel safe expressing themselves. That sense of security is more important than any instruction. In friendship, a humble person doesn't make their friend feel inferior. They don't show off their life excessively. They don't turn every meeting into a place to boast about their successes. Therefore, friendships are free from the pressure of comparison and avoid being silently hurt. Ancient people understood that what makes people most tired is not the difficulties themselves, but the psychological pressure of constantly feeling inferior to others. Humble people inadvertently relieve that pressure for those around them. They become a place where others can find mental rest. Humility isn't about hiding your abilities. It's about not using your abilities to exert pressure. Truly strong people don't need to prove themselves by making others feel weak. They let their presence create a comfortable feeling. This sense of security is the foundation of long-term winning people's hearts. People may admire talent for a moment, but they only stay with those who make them feel respected and safe in the long run. The ancients considered this a high level of humility because it cannot be faked. Only when one's inner self is truly firm, without comparison or competition, can one be naturally humble. And only then can others truly feel at ease in their presence. When you walk into a room, if your presence makes others relax, dare to speak, dare to laugh, dare to be themselves, then that's a sign you're winning people over effortlessly. If you find these philosophies on humility and compassion thought-provoking, please share this video with someone you cherish. And don't forget to subscribe to the Simple Philosophy channel to continue learning together how to live more deeply, peacefully, and sustainably each day. 4. Winning hearts and minds begins with not making others feel inferior. This is something the ancients observed very early on, but which later generations often overlook. Many people think that to be respected, they must be better than others. They must prove they are more skilled, superior, and more insightful. But in reality, people's hearts don't follow that path. People don't hate talented people. They only feel uncomfortable when they are around someone who makes them feel inferior. In every relationship, whether with friends, family, colleagues, or business partners, there's always a silent psychological undercurrent, the feeling of self-worth. When this feeling is hurt, people close themselves off. Outwardly, they may maintain politeness, but inwardly, distance has formed. Ancient wisdom teaches that if you want others to follow you, you must first ensure they stand firmly beside you, not behind you, not below you, but on equal footing emotionally. When someone constantly emphasizes their superiority, whether through words or actions, the other person will automatically become defensive, because no one wants to remain in a position of inferiority. In everyday interactions, some people don't intentionally try to win or lose, but the way they speak, the way they correct others in front of a crowd, the way they boast about their achievements, all of this unintentionally makes the other person feel inferior. This feeling doesn't need to be expressed, but it's enough to diminish goodwill. The ancients understood that people are very sensitive to comparisons, even subtle ones. When someone feels inferior, they will no longer want to be involved. They may still cooperate and socialize, but the deep trust is lost. Wise people don't use their advantages to create distance. They know when to dim their light, not because they're weak, because they understand that too much light can blind others. When the other person is no longer comfortable, the relationship cannot last. In the workplace, a good leader doesn't make subordinates feel useless. They don't flaunt their knowledge to prove their power. They give others opportunities to demonstrate their abilities. When subordinates feel valued, they truly become dedicated. Winning hearts and minds within a team begins here. Conversely, a leader who acts like they know everything, are the best, and are right, will gradually silence others. And not because they agree, but because they don't want to be further outdone. That silence is a sign of distance, not of submission. The same applies to friendships. A friend who constantly talks about their successes and boasts about their good life, even without malicious intent, can make the listener feel inferior, if not tactful. Over time, the friendship fades, not because of jealousy, but because the feeling of inferiority becomes exhausting. Ancient wisdom teaches that winning people's hearts doesn't lie in making them admire you, but in making them feel respected. Respect here means not putting them in an inferior position, not forcing them to compare themselves to others and feel hurt. In families, when parents constantly use their experience to negate their children's thoughts, always saying they are more experienced, more knowledgeable, and more right, children will gradually withdraw. It's not because of a lack of love, but because they feel they are always wrong and inferior. Trust is thus fractured. Those who understand people know that everyone wants to be seen as a valuable individual. When you talk to someone and make them feel heard, respected, and not belittled, you've already gone halfway to winning their hearts. Not making others feel inferior doesn't mean belittling yourself. The ancients were very clear about this. Humility is different from weakness. Humility is knowing your strengths and knowing when not to show them off. Truly confident people aren't afraid of others being more capable. They don't need to use their superiority to protect their ego. Therefore, they don't unintentionally make others feel inferior. This sense of security is incredibly contagious. In a conversation, when you don't try to be right, don't try to correct the other person immediately. And don't turn opinions into a win-lose argument. The other person will feel respected, regardless of whether they ultimately change their mind. Positive feelings will be preserved. The ancients said that those who make others feel inferior will only be feared, not loved. Fear creates distance, while love creates connection. Winning hearts requires the latter, not the former. In society, there are talented but lonely people. Not because they are unattractive, but because being around them makes others feel insignificant. No one wants to stay in that feeling for long. Wise people understand that everyone has self-esteem, whether high or low, whether expressed or not. When you inadvertently hurt that self-esteem, the relationship will be damaged, even if you have good intentions. Winning hearts and minds begins with preserving the self-esteem of others. No need for flattery, no need to pamper. Simply not making them feel inferior is enough to make them want to stay. Ancient people considered this a high art of social interaction. It requires keen observation and inner strength. Those who lack this strength will need to prove themselves. Those who are strong enough will not. When you enter a relationship with a mindset of neither winning nor losing, without comparison, without the need to triumph, the other person will naturally relax. When people relax, trust has room to flourish. Over time, others will realize that being around you means they don't have to put on a brave face, be defensive, or worry about being judged. This very feeling is what makes them want to stay with you long term. The ancients said that people's hearts come and go very quickly. But a person's heart only stays where they feel they are not inferior, not hurt, and not humiliated. If one day you realize that many people seek you out to chat, to share, to collaborate, not because you're a good speaker, but because they feel safe and secure in your presence, then that's a sign you've understood the core of winning people over. Not making others feel inferior isn't about outward humility. It's about respect from within. That's the most solid foundation of any lasting relationship. 5. Humble people know how to listen. Those who are listened to are more likely to open up. This is a very deep connection that the ancients observed long ago. In all relationships, people don't really need others to speak well. What they need is to feel heard and valued. Listening is not just about remaining silent while others speak. It's about setting aside one's ego and giving the other person their full attention. Humble people do this naturally because they don't need words to assert their own worth. The ancients said that words easily make an impression, but listening is what truly wins hearts. When a person feels their words are heard and their feelings understood, they will automatically open up. No coercion or persuasion is needed. In life, there are many conversations that aren't really dialogues. Each person is just waiting for their turn to speak, waiting to express their opinion, waiting to prove themselves right. In such conversations, hearts cannot connect because no one is truly listened to. Humble people are different. They don't interrupt. They don't rush to argue. They don't rush to conclusions. They let others express their thoughts completely, including awkward points and unclear points. This is what makes the other person feel safe. The feeling of being listened to is very important because it touches on a deep-seated human need, the need for recognition. When someone listens to you sincerely, you feel valued and that your thoughts deserve respect. The ancients understood that people close their hearts not because they are opposed, but because they are disregarded. When you interrupt, when you hastily correct, when you show that you understand before the other person has finished speaking, you are inadvertently saying that what they said is unimportant. Humble people are not afraid to hear things that disagree with them because they don't put themselves at the center. They listen to understand, not to argue. It is this steadfastness that inspires others to speak the truth. In the workplace, a leader who knows how to listen will win people's hearts more easily than someone who is only good at giving orders. When employees feel their opinions are heard, they will be more proactive, more honest, and more committed, even if their opinions are not always implemented. Conversely, someone who talks a lot, always explains, always guides, but rarely listens, will gradually silence others. Not because they've run out of ideas, but because they feel their words won't be appreciated. The ancients taught that listening is a sign of wisdom, not weakness. Only those with a full and stable inner self are unafraid to give others a voice. Only those who are insecure need to talk a lot to maintain the upper hand. In friendships, those who know how to listen are often trusted. Friends find it easier to share personal matters and express their sorrows, not because the other person offers the best solution, because they don't judge, compare, or impose their views. There are times when people don't need advice, just need to be able to speak their minds, to vent out. Humble people understand this. That's why they don't rush to lecture others or jump to conclusions about right and wrong. The ancients said that a well-timed question is worth more than 100 pieces of advice. Humble people usually ask few but insightful questions because they have listened long enough to understand the core issue. Listening also helps avoid a lot of unnecessary hurt. Many conflicts arise not because of differing opinions, but because feelings are not listened to. When feelings are ignored, all reasoning becomes meaningless. Humble people understand that before discussing logic, others must be allowed to express their feelings. When feelings are acknowledged, people's hearts will soften. And when hearts soften, reason will have a place. In the family, parents who listen to their children build lasting trust, not through authority but through respect. When children feel listened to, they will dare to speak the truth, dare to share, and dare to admit their mistakes. Conversely, when children are constantly interrupted, their feelings denied, and they are compared to others, they will become withdrawn. Even if they appear well-behaved on the outside, an inner distance will have formed. Ancient people placed great importance on listening. They understood that listening is the quickest way to understand people's hearts. Those who talk a lot reveal their true feelings. Those who know how to listen will see what remains unsaid. Listening helps you recognize other people's fears, desires, and limitations. From there, you can behave more appropriately, avoiding unintentional hurt or putting others in difficult situations. A humble listener doesn't just listen with their ears. They listen with their attitude, their eyes, their responses, and their patience. These small things create a very strong sense of respect. When someone feels listened to, they will naturally open up. You won't need to ask many questions or pressure them. This openness is the foundation of any lasting relationship. The ancients said that winning people's hearts doesn't require eloquent words. It's enough to let others express what's in their hearts. Once they've spoken, they'll feel lighter. And that lightness is connected to the person who listened to them. Over time, people will seek out those who know how to listen, not because they always offer solutions, but because being around them allows them to be themselves, without being defensive or putting on an act. Humble people understand that everyone has their own story. There are things that cannot be summarized in a few sentences. There are emotions that need time. Therefore, they are not in a hurry. In a world where everyone wants to talk, good listeners are rare. And it is precisely this rarity that makes them so precious to others. Ancient people considered listening a sign of virtue because it puts others before oneself. It's not to please, but out of genuine respect. When you listen long enough, you'll find that people open up on their own. It's not because you're clever, but because you make them feel like they are a complete and integral part of the conversation. Humble people don't need to say much to win hearts. They only need to listen. People will naturally find their way to them. And when hearts are open, all relationships become much gentler and more enduring. 6. Ancient wisdom teaches that listening is the quickest way to understand people. Understanding people is the foundation of winning hearts and minds. This is not merely a teaching of communication techniques, but rather a distillation of profound observations about human nature and long-term relationships. People differ in their thoughts, experiences, fears, and desires. But they are alike in one respect. Everyone wants to be understood. When a person feels understood, they naturally open up. Once their heart is open, all distance is narrow. Winning hearts, therefore, doesn't require trickery, but rather the right kind of understanding. The ancients realized that to understand people quickly, there is no shorter path than listening, because people's words carry not only information, but also emotions, motives, and things they don't say. Those who talk a lot often only hear the surface. Only those who know how to listen can reach the heart. Listening isn't about waiting for someone to finish speaking before responding. It's about truly paying attention to them, without judgment, without interrupting, without jumping to conclusions. When someone feels this way, they will speak more and more deeply and more genuinely. The ancients understood that people often conceal their true selves through words, but they inadvertently reveal themselves when they speak long enough. If you listen patiently enough, you will see what they worry about, what they fear, what they want to keep, and what they want to avoid. These are the keys to understanding people's hearts. Understanding people isn't about manipulation, but about avoiding wrong behavior. Many relationships break down not because of malice, but because of misunderstanding. Saying what you think is right, but saying the wrong thing to hear. Doing what you think is good, but touching on the other person's fears. The ancients taught that when you don't understand something, don't speak hastily, because one wrong word can destroy years of built-up trust. Those who speak little aren't necessarily lacking in opinions. Rather, they know how to listen first to understand correctly. In life, there are people who, with just a few words, can drive others away. Not because they are bad people, but because they speak without understanding. Conversely, there are people who don't talk much, yet everyone wants to be around them, because they understand what others are thinking and needing. Listening helps you recognize the emotions behind words. When someone is angry, they might be afraid of losing control. When someone boasts, they might be feeling insecure. When someone is silent, they might be hurt. If you only listen to the words, you will react incorrectly. If you listen to the emotions, you will behave correctly. Ancient wisdom holds that understanding people is fundamental, because every right action begins with correct understanding. You cannot offer the right comfort without understanding their sadness. You cannot give the right advice without understanding their self-respect. You cannot lead without understanding their fear. In the workplace, Leaders who understand people don't need to yell or tightly control them. They know who needs encouragement, who needs clarity, and who needs space. This allows the team to function effectively on its own. In the family, parents who understand their children will not teach them through coercion, but through companionship. When children feel understood, they will cooperate not out of fear, but out of trust. In friendship, those who truly understand each other know when to be silent, when to ask questions, and when to share. This is what makes a friendship last, not because it's always fun, but because of mutual respect. The ancients said that understanding people doesn't come from memorizing theories, but from listening to their lives. Each person is a story. To understand a story, you must let them tell it. Can't rush it. Listening is also a way to humble your ego. When you listen, you accept that you don't know everything, that you're not entirely right. This attitude makes others feel safe. And when they feel safe, they will open up. Winning hearts and minds isn't about making others submit to you, but about making them willingly believe. This belief cannot be forced. It only arises when people feel understood. The ancients highly valued understanding, for it is the foundation of virtue. Those who don't understand others can easily unintentionally hurt them, even with good intentions. Those who understand others will avoid such harm. When you listen long enough, you will no longer rush to judge, no longer rush to lecture, no longer rush to show off. You will choose to speak less, but every word you say will be relevant. People who truly understand others are often reserved, not because they are cold, but because they are observing, listening, and considering. It is this very reserve that makes them trustworthy. The ancients taught that to win people's hearts, one must first win their hearts. To win people's hearts, one must understand them. And to understand them, there is no shorter path than listening. When you truly listen, you'll find that people aren't as unapproachable as you think. It's just that they haven't met many people who understand them before. And when they do, they'll naturally stay. 7. People who talk a lot about themselves often take up space from others. Humble people always leave room for others to express themselves. This is a very subtle difference, but it determines whether a person will be loved and trusted in the long term. Ancient people observed this very carefully in communication and considered it the foundation of winning people's hearts. The space here isn't just about the time spent talking. It's about mental space. Space where others can be themselves, express their thoughts, and showcase their values. When someone constantly talks about themselves, boasts about their achievements, shares their experiences, and compares their knowledge, whether intentionally or unintentionally, they are narrowing that space. People are very sensitive to being overshadowed. When someone talks too much about them, the other person gradually feels their role diminishes. Their opinions become less important, and their story unnecessary. This feeling doesn't manifest immediately, but it subtly causes people to close themselves off. The ancients understood that in every relationship, everyone wants a place to stand out, not necessarily to be outstanding, but to be acknowledged. When this space is taken up, the relationship becomes unbalanced, and when that balance is lost, the bond becomes difficult to sustain. People who talk a lot about themselves often don't realize this. They think sharing is about connection. But if sharing revolves only around oneself, it's no longer connection, it's a monologue. The listener might be polite at first, but inwardly they're gradually becoming tired. Conversely, humble people are very aware of other people's space. They don't rush to tell their own stories. They don't interrupt. They don't turn the conversation into a personal stage. They create just enough space for the other person to step in. And when there is space, others dare to express themselves. The ancients said that a wise person knows when to take a step back in their speech. That step back doesn't diminish them. Instead, it gives others a foothold. When others have a foothold, they will develop goodwill. From that goodwill, trust begins to form. In communication, humble people tend to ask more questions than they speak. But their questions aren't aimed at extracting information. Rather, they pave the way for others to open up. A well-timed question can unlock a whole story that the other person has long wanted to tell. When a person is given the opportunity to express themselves, they feel valued. This feeling is crucial because it impacts their self-esteem. When self-esteem is respected, people naturally open up without needing to be forced. Ancient wisdom observes that many people fail to build relationships not because they are incompetent, but because they talk too much about themselves. They want to be understood, but forget that to be understood, one must first understand others. Humble people are not afraid of others being talented or outstanding, because they don't see life as a competition to win or lose. Therefore, they are willing to give way, allowing others to shine. When others shine, they don't feel threatened, but rather happy. In the workplace, a manager who gives employees space to express themselves will build a strong team. When employees are given the opportunity to speak, present their ideas, and be recognized, they will be more proactive, creative, and loyal. Conversely, a manager who constantly talks about themselves, about their experience, achievements, and the right way of doing things will gradually silence others. Not because they lack ideas, but because they feel there's no place for them. Ancient wisdom holds that occupying someone else's space is the quickest way to lose their favor. It makes the other person feel like they are merely an observer, not a companion. And no one wants to remain in that role for long. The same applies to friendships. A friend who always tells their own story, always talks about their life, always revolves their own life around them, will cause the other person to gradually withdraw, not out of jealousy, but out of exhaustion. Humble people are different. They remember the details of other people's stories. They ask questions. They listen. They make the other person feel that their story is important. This is what makes friendships last. The ancients understood that people are drawn to places where they can be themselves, not places where they only listen to what others say. When someone always gives you space to express yourself, you will naturally want to return. In the family, parents who give their children space to speak build trust. When children are allowed to speak, to express their feelings, and to voice their thoughts, they won't need to hide or silently resist. Conversely, when adults are always talking, always teaching, always sharing their experiences, children will gradually become withdrawn. Even though they still obey, they will no longer share internally. Ancient people viewed giving others space as a sign of virtue. It shows that the person doesn't put themselves above others, doesn't use words to overpower them, but uses their presence to uplift them. Humble people understand that everyone has a need to express themselves, not to show off, but to be recognized. When this need is met, people become more gentle, more open, and more likable. When you're talking to someone, if you let them speak fully, without interrupting or rushing to change the subject to yourself, you're giving them a very important gift, your full presence. The ancients said that there are some people who are simply pleasant to be around, not because they speak well, but because they don't take up all the space. They'll let others breathe, speak, and be themselves. People who talk a lot about themselves aren't usually bad people. They're just seeking validation. But when they seek it in the wrong way, they unintentionally make others feel overwhelmed. And when people feel overwhelmed, their hearts will withdraw. Humble people don't need verbal validation. They are already strong enough within. This inner strength allows them to naturally make room for others. The ancients considered this a high level of achievement. Only those who lack nothing dare to yield. Only those who are not afraid of loss dare to give. When you dare to yield your space, you are telling others that you respect them. And when people feel respected, they will willingly commit. No strings attached, no persuasion needed. Winning people's hearts isn't about how often you're around, but about how you allow others to be around you. When they feel seen, heard, and appreciated, they will open up to you. Humble people understand this. Therefore, they don't rush to talk about themselves. They let space speak for itself. And it is precisely that space that people find their way to and stay the longest. 8. Humility helps avoid unnecessary conflict. Avoiding conflict means maintaining harmony. This is something the ancients particularly valued in their conduct. They understood that conflict rarely stems from major issues, but rather from ego, comparison, and feelings of being looked down upon or inferior. In life, many conflicts don't stem from right or wrong, but from emotions. It's just a boastful remark, a competitive attitude, a look that shows one is superior. All of these are enough to stir up trouble. Humility is the quiet way to extinguish those sparks before they even ignite. The ancients said that wise people don't avoid conflict by dodging it, but by not creating the causes of conflict. Humility is a soft cushion, soothes the clash of egos, and keeps relationships from escalating to tension. People are very sensitive to having their self-worth challenged. When someone tries to appear superior, even without saying it directly, the other person can sense it. That feeling easily turns into defensiveness. When defensiveness arises, conflict is only a matter of time. Humble people don't need to prove themselves superior. They don't argue about being right. They don't rush to dismiss others' opinions. They don't turn every conversation into a silent battle. As a result, the atmosphere around them is usually more peaceful. Ancient wisdom holds that harmony is the foundation of all lasting relationships. Without harmony, talent cannot flourish, reason is not heeded, and good intentions are easily misunderstood. Humility helps maintain harmony by protecting the self-respect of others. In a group setting, humble people tend to avoid conflict. This isn't because they lack opinions, but because they know how to present them without making others feel defeated. They choose their timing, their manner of speaking, and sometimes choose silence when it's unnecessary. The ancients taught that there are times when it's right but unnecessary to say it because speaking out would only create more conflict. Humble people understand this. They prioritize long-term peace over winning a short-term argument. Story 2 illustrates this very clearly. There were two people working in the same team. Both were talented. Their abilities were comparable. In fact, the one who boasted more often had more outstanding achievements in the beginning. People who boast frequently talk about their achievements, correct others' mistakes in front of everyone, and emphasize that their methods are more effective. Initially, people listen. But gradually, the atmosphere becomes tense. Those around them feel compared, pressured, and belittled, even though no one says it directly. Meanwhile, humble people work with great focus. They talk little about themselves. When giving feedback, they choose to speak privately. When successful, they acknowledge the collective effort. When mistakes occur, they take responsibility for their part first. The atmosphere around them is therefore very different. Gradually, those who boast begin to become isolated. No one wants to engage in deep conversation. No one proactively cooperates, not because of jealousy, but because in their presence, others always feel inferior. Yet that pressure causes people to withdraw. Humble people are the opposite. Everyone is willing to support them, willing to share information, and willing to stand by them when problems arise. Not because they are flattering, but because they maintain harmony and don't hurt anyone's self-esteem. The final result clearly shows that it's not the more talented person who goes further, but the one who wins people's hearts. In times of change, when support is needed, when trust is required, the humble person receives it naturally. The ancients understood that conflict not only drains emotions but also diminishes good fortune. A person living in constant conflict, no matter how capable, will find it difficult to maintain lasting peace. Humility helps to cut down on unnecessary conflicts. Within the family, humility helps avoid generational conflicts. Humble parents will not use their experience to impose their will. Humble children will not use new ideas to negate those who came before them. As a result, harmony is maintained, and the family remains peaceful. In friendship, humility helps avoid hidden hurts. Don't show off too much. Don't compare yourself to others. Don't turn every meeting into a display of affection. Because of this, friendships won't be damaged by trivial matters. The ancients said that avoiding conflict once preserves 10 parts of goodwill, because conflict leaves scars. Even with reconciliation, the scars remain. Humble people choose not to create scars in the first place. This doesn't mean being submissive all the time. It means knowing when to speak up and when to ignore things. Humility goes hand in hand with wisdom, not with weakness. Humble people understand that many conflicts aren't worth winning. Because even if you win, you lose. You lose harmony. You lose goodwill. You lose trust. Those things are much harder to regain. Ancient people considered harmony to be the foundation for great achievements. When people are in conflict, nothing can go smoothly. When hearts are tense, no plan can endure. Humility helps to keep that flow of energy calm. In society, there are people who are very talented, but are always embroiled in controversy. It's not because they are bad people, but because they lack humility. Their words are sharp, their attitude arrogant, easily offending others. Conflicts therefore keep recurring. Conversely, There are people who aren't particularly outstanding, but their lives are peaceful, their relationships are strong, and their careers are successful. This is because they know how to conduct themselves, keep their word, and maintain a good attitude. Humility helps them avoid many unnecessary conflicts. The ancients taught that harmony brings wealth, happiness, and longevity. Those who maintain harmony have a way out. When faced with adversity, they still have people by their side, a support system, and backing. Humility doesn't diminish your talent. It only prevents that talent from becoming a knife that hurts others. When talent is enveloped in humility, it becomes more acceptable, more collaborative, and goes further. Avoiding unnecessary conflict is not about living a dull life. It's about living subtly, knowing when to shine, when to step back, and when to remain silent. It is this subtlety that gives a wise person depth. Ancient people considered those who maintained harmony to be fortunate, because they didn't have to deal with problems they created themselves. They could use that time and energy to live, to work, and to cultivate themselves. Humility, therefore, is not just a virtue, it is wisdom. Wisdom to see beyond a simple victory or defeat. Wisdom to see that winning people's hearts is more important than being superior for a short time. When you enter an environment, if your presence doesn't create tension, doesn't make others wary, and doesn't make anyone feel inferior, then you are maintaining harmony for yourself and the group. And when harmony is maintained, winning people's hearts is no longer something to strive for. It happens naturally, quietly, but sustainably, just as our ancestors lived and passed down to future generations. 9. Humble people don't seek credit for themselves, yet credit often finds them. This is a paradox that the ancients recognized very early on. While many believe that one must compete, speak up, and prove oneself to be recognized, the reality is that human nature operates in the opposite direction. The ancients understood that there are two kinds of merit. One kind is merit that is spoken of. The other kind is merit that is seen. Merit that is spoken of is quick, but merit that is seen is lasting. Humble people choose the second path, slower, less noisy, but deeper and more enduring. Those who seek credit for their work often focus on what others think of them. Therefore, they are easily impatient, prone to showing off, and quick to compare themselves to others. Every action is accompanied by a desire for immediate recognition. But when that desire becomes too obvious, people become wary. The ancients said that when someone is too eager to claim credit, others will wonder what they are hiding. When someone is too afraid of losing credit, others will suspect their motives. This very haste diminishes the value of one's efforts. Humble people are different. They work for the job itself, not for attention or praise. They focus on the common good, not on personal rewards. That's why their work is usually solid, with few mistakes, little fanfare, but highly reliable. The ancients observed that people's hearts are very discerning. Even if they don't say it out loud, everyone can see who does the most, who bears the heaviest burden, who silently corrects mistakes, and who stands up in times of need. They just don't say it immediately, but they remember it for a very long time. Those who boast are often only remembered when they are speaking. When they are silent, their image fades very quickly. Humble people may not be mentioned at first, but when trustworthy people are needed, their names will naturally be recalled. In the workplace, people who take credit for others' work often create tension. Their achievements are always accompanied by a denial of the efforts of others, leading to disharmony within the team. And when harmony is lost, even great achievements are viewed with suspicion. Conversely, humble people don't take credit for their work to make others feel inferior. They are willing to share their achievements, willing to take on the difficult tasks, and willing to step back. Because of this, when opportunities arise, the group naturally wants to push them to the front. The ancients said that merit is like water. The harder you try to hold it, the more it slips through your fingers. If you let go, the water will naturally flow to the lowest point. A humble person is that low point, where merit naturally finds its way to them. Throughout history, many people have been highly regarded not because they recommended themselves, but because others recommended them. It's not because they claimed to be capable, but because many others considered them trustworthy. This is a kind of merit that doesn't need to be contested, yet no one can take it away from them. Humble people don't rush to explain themselves when misunderstood. They focus on doing their job correctly. When the results become apparent, the truth speaks for itself. Ancient people considered this the most enduring way to preserve merit, because merit is linked to results, not words. Those who seek credit for others' work often live in anxiety. They worry about others taking their share, about their names being forgotten, about being overshadowed. This anxiety makes it difficult for them to remain calm. And when their minds are restless, their work is difficult to sustain. Humble people are more at peace. They believe that their work will eventually be seen by others. Perhaps not today, but there will be a time when it's needed. This peace allows them to work deeply and persistently without being distracted by external opinions. The ancients taught that a virtuous person's achievements are not wasted. They may just come later. But when they do, they come with respect, not with reluctance. Humble people often gain trust at the same time as their accomplishments. In a group setting, when choosing someone to take on a major task, people rarely select those who are quick to take credit, fearing they will prioritize personal gain. Instead, they choose humble individuals, believing they will put the common good first. That very belief is the greatest reward. Merit combined with trust has lasting value. Merit accompanied only by praise is very fragile. The ancients clearly distinguished this. Therefore, they taught their descendants to maintain self-control first. Merit will follow. In relationships, humble people don't keep a record of favors. They don't dwell on what they've done to help. But when others need help, they are willing to reciprocate. It's not out of obligation, but because they want to. Those who boast often bring up the past to claim their share. Humble people don't need to be reminded because people already remember. When people remember, merit doesn't need to be spoken of. The ancients said that vying for credit is a sign of a lack of faith in lasting principles. Those who believe in principles are not afraid of temporary losses because they know that a small loss will lead to a greater gain. Humble people don't view life as a short race. They look far ahead. They look long-term. They look at reputation. They look at perseverance. Therefore, they don't rush to accumulate achievements. They let their work settle naturally. Like muddy water, the more you stir it, the muddier it becomes. Leave it alone, and it will become clear on its own. The same applies to merit. The more you argue, the more complicated it becomes. The more you step back, the clearer it becomes. Humble people understand this. There are people who work very hard, but just one boastful remark, one argument, and all their previous efforts lose their integrity. The ancients taught that it's harder to control one's tongue when success comes than when there's nothing. Humble people overcome this challenge. When success comes, they maintain a calm demeanor. They don't raise their voices or change their expressions. As a result, their achievements don't cause resentment, but instead inspire respect. Ultimately, the greatest merit of a humble person lies not in specific achievements, but in being given more work, being trusted again, being chosen when faced with difficult situations. That is the merit of living, not the merit recorded on paper. The ancients said that those who do not seek credit, but are always given tasks, are those who have won people's hearts. For merit only comes to those whose hearts are open. When you don't need to say you deserve it, but others still think of you. When you don't need to fight for it, but the important part still falls into your hands, that's when credit comes to you naturally. And that's when humility becomes the greatest strength. Quietly, but nothing can shake it. 10. The ancients said that the greater the achievement, the more it should be kept secret. Showing off one's accomplishments easily breeds envy. This is a profound teaching about human nature and also a lesson learned through many trials and tribulations throughout history. People often think that if they accomplish great things, they should boast about it to gain recognition. But the ancients saw the other side of this. When achievements are too obvious, undercurrents of discontent easily arise in people's hearts. Envy doesn't always stem from malice. It often arises from comparison. When someone constantly boasts about their achievements, others will inevitably compare themselves to them. And when they feel inferior, resentment arises. Even if they don't express it, a gap has already formed. The ancients understood that people feel deeply uncomfortable when they are placed in a position of inferiority, especially when that inferiority is publicly exposed. When someone boasts about their achievements, they are not only talking about themselves, but are also inadvertently reminding others that they haven't achieved the same. This instantly hurts their self-esteem. The greater the achievement, the wider the scope of influence. More people know. More people hear. More people compare. Therefore, the ancients taught that the greater the achievement, the more discreet it must be. Not out of fear of losing it, but out of fear of harm caused by people's hearts. Throughout history, many people have achieved great things, but ended up with unhappiness. Not because their achievements weren't genuine, but because they were too ostentatious. When their accomplishments become too dazzling, they not only illuminate others, but also reveal their shadows. That shadow is where envy is born. The ancients said that envy is like weeds. It doesn't need to be sown, it grows on its own. All it needs is the right soil. That soil is comparison. Showing off one's achievements is the quickest way to create that soil. Wise people understand that true merit doesn't lie in being known by everyone, but in being trusted by everyone. Trust that when needed, that person will be able to do it. Trust that entrusting a task to that person is reassuring. This trust doesn't need boasting. It's accumulated through long-term work. When someone constantly talks about their achievements, others will start observing, not to learn, but to find weaknesses. It's a natural human reaction. When people see someone standing too high, they want to pull them down. Not necessarily because it's bad, but because they want to balance their own feelings. Our ancestors clearly understood this. Therefore, they taught their descendants that preserving one's achievements is also about preserving one's own. Merit should not be protected by boasting, but by discretion. When you don't show off, you don't create targets for scrutiny. In the workplace, if someone has just achieved a great accomplishment and is quick to boast and emphasize their role, it can easily annoy colleagues. Even if they don't deny the results, a distance will develop between them. When that distance exists, cooperation will decrease. Conversely, those who achieve great things but maintain a calm demeanor without boasting or trying to take credit will make others feel more at ease. Their contributions will be recognized with respect, not with a sense of pressure. The ancients said that showing off one's achievements is like carrying fire in the wind. It doesn't always burn, but when it does, it's very difficult to put out. Envy, once born, is very difficult to eradicate because it doesn't stem from reason, but from emotion. Wise people choose to let their work speak for itself, not just talk. When the results are clear, when things run smoothly, when others benefit, their contributions are naturally recognized. No need for reminders. The ancients also understood that boasting about achievements often leads to recounting hardships, telling how much one has toiled, how much one has sacrificed. But the more one tells, the more burdened others become, because no one wants to feel obligated to be grateful. Those who do good deeds in silence are different. They don't demand recognition. They don't mention favors. That's why, when they need help, others are willing to assist, not out of obligation, but out of respect. Great achievements can be kept secret, but reputation is even greater than the achievement. Reputation is something that doesn't need to be boasted about, but everyone knows it. The ancients considered reputation more important than temporary achievements, because achievements can be forgotten, but reputation cannot. In life, there are people who accomplish a great deal, but few remember it. Not because they don't deserve it, but because they diminish their own value by showing off too soon. When they show off, others pay more attention to their attitude than their results. The ancients taught that those who achieve great things but do not boast are blessed, because they avoid much gossip, slander, and scrutiny. They use that time and energy to continue working. Showing off achievements easily breeds jealousy. It's not only among those less capable, but also among those of equal standing. When two people are on the same level, one person boasting about their achievements disrupts the balance. And when the balance is broken, the relationship will fracture. Humble people understand that maintaining relationships is more important than immediate recognition. Relationships are the foundation for long-term work. Recognition may come a little later, but if you lose people's trust, even the greatest achievements will be difficult to sustain. The ancients said that great achievements often come with dangerous positions. This isn't because the achievements are bad, but because many eyes are watching. When there are many eyes, there's much gossip and slander. When there is much gossip and slander, those who are not strong-willed are easily led astray. Wise people don't test others' hearts by boasting about their achievements. They understand that human hearts have limits. Not everyone is open-minded enough to rejoice in the success of others. Knowing this isn't pessimism, it's reality. Concealing one's achievements is not about denying one's value. Rather, it's about choosing the right time for that value to be recognized. When the time isn't right, silence is the best form of protection. The ancients taught that when achievements are not yet great, boasting will lead to contempt. When achievements are sufficient, boasting will lead to comparisons. When achievements are too great, boasting will breed envy. Therefore, silence is the safest path at all stages. Those who remain silent when they have done something good are people with very strong inner selves, because they don't need constant validation. They believe in the value of what they do, and they believe that those who need to know will eventually find out. In a group setting, those who don't boast about their achievements are often mentioned at important moments, not because they nominated themselves, but because others see them as suitable. That's the most enduring form of merit. Ancient people considered maintaining one's reputation as part of self-cultivation. It trains individuals to control their ego. When the ego doesn't need to be nourished by praise, a person becomes lighter, clear-minded, and less prone to trouble. Showing off achievements easily breeds envy. But concealing achievements fosters respect. Respect comes from a sense of security. Security because that person doesn't use their achievements to overpower others. They don't use their accomplishments to put others down. Finally, the ancients taught that the greatest achievement is not how much you accomplish, but how much loyalty you retain after you have done it. If the work is done, but people's hearts are broken, then the achievement is incomplete. Those who truly understand this principle will not rush. They let things settle like clear water. When the water is clear enough, everyone can see the bottom. No need to stir, no need to call out. The greater the achievement, the more it should be kept secret. Not to lose it, but to preserve it. Preserve the achievement. Preserve the people. Preserve the long-term goal. That is the deepest wisdom that our ancestors left for future generations. 11. Humility helps others to lower their guard. When they are not guarded, people are more approachable. This is one of the very subtle observations of the ancients about how people connect with each other. In any relationship, the most difficult thing is not how to speak eloquently, but how to make the other person feel safe in your presence. Being wary is a natural human reaction. When encountering someone who seems too good, too superior, too confident, the first instinct is often not admiration, but caution. People fear being compared, fear being judged, fear feeling insignificant in the face of others. This very feeling causes a distance to form very quickly. Ancient wisdom shows that humility is not merely a moral virtue, but also a way to create a safe space for others. A humble person doesn't show off their knowledge, doesn't impose their views, and doesn't act as if they're always right. This reduces tension, lessens defensiveness, and makes others more open to it. When people let go of their guard, they dare to show their true selves. They dare to speak their minds, share their worries, and admit their weaknesses. This is the foundation of true intimacy, not superficial social closeness, but a connection from within. Humble people usually enter relationships on equal footing, not superior, not inferior. No need to prove anything, no need to compete. This very equality dissolves the feeling of competition. When there is no competition, people's hearts naturally calm down. The ancients said that the human heart is like the surface of water. If you step in gently, the water will only ripple. But if you jump forcefully, the water will splash. An arrogant person is like someone who jumps forcefully. They create a reaction. A humble person is like someone who steps slowly. They don't cause a disturbance. In everyday communication, humble people don't rush to contradict, correct others, or show off their superior knowledge. They listen more and observe more. This makes the other person feel respected. When they feel respected, their inner defenses lower. Conversely, someone who always acts like they know everything and are always right, even without saying anything contemptuous, is enough to create a barrier in others' hearts. Once that barrier is in place, any subsequent words, however well-intentioned, will find it difficult to win their favor. Ancient people highly valued a sense of security in relationships. They understood that people only truly connect with places where they don't have to strain themselves, where they don't have to pretend, where they don't have to prove their worth. Humble people create that feeling naturally. Humility also helps prevent others from feeling exploited. Someone who is too shrewd, too ambitious, easily arouses suspicion of their motives. But a humble person usually doesn't reveal their intentions, doesn't pressure, and doesn't demand. This makes others feel more secure when interacting with them. In a group setting, humble people are often more likely to share information because they don't create a sense of threat. Others don't fear being judged, exploited, or seen as incompetent for speaking up. This is a huge advantage in building trust. The ancients taught that to truly understand people, one must first make them fear you. Fear here doesn't just mean fear of power, but also fear of being hurt, fear of being looked down upon, fear of being compared to others. Humility is the way to alleviate those fears. Humble people don't use their strengths as weapons. They use them as a foundation. They don't show them off. They don't hide them. But they also don't use them to overwhelm others. Right. It is this moderation that makes others feel comfortable. When people are approachable, relationships develop naturally.
How?
There's no need for many invitations or creating false rapport. The closest relationship is one that stems from a feeling of security. Ancient wisdom also emphasizes that humility does not lead to contempt from others. On the contrary, it makes others want to learn more. Because when not under pressure, people tend to be curious and expand their connections. A humble person brings a sense of calm wherever they go. That calmness spreads to others. When the atmosphere softens, communication becomes more genuine, less defensive, less artificial. In modern life, where everyone wants to show off and everyone fears being left behind, humility becomes increasingly rare, right? And precisely because it is rare, it becomes all the more valuable. Humble people stand out not because they are superior, but because they make others feel comfortable. The ancients were far-sighted when they said that winning people's hearts doesn't begin with words, but with feelings. A feeling of security is the key. Humility is the shortest path to that feeling. When others are not wary of you, they will look at you with goodwill, listen to you with an open mind, and trust you based on experience. Such trust doesn't need persuasion. It develops naturally. Ultimately, humility is not a strategy, but an inner state of mind. When you truly don't need to compete, prove anything, or stand tall, others will sense it. And when they sense it, their hearts will naturally draw closer. 12. Humble people don't need to win anyone over, yet others willingly follow them. This is one of the most profound paradoxes that the ancients pointed out. The more a person tries to influence and win people's hearts, the more closed those hearts become. Conversely, when a person has no intention of winning, no attempts to entice, and no attempts to prove themselves, people's hearts gradually open up. Ancient people observed that human nature is highly sensitive to intentions. Even without spoken words, people can clearly sense who is approaching them and what their purpose is. When someone wants to be liked, followed, or supported, their behavior will reveal impatience, expectation, and calculation. These things create invisible pressure that causes others to back away. Humble people don't carry that pressure. They don't need anyone to follow them to prove their worth. They don't need recognition to feel fulfilled. They don't need a crowd to feel secure, because their inner selves are already strong. They enter relationships naturally. No pulling, no pushing, no forcing. This very naturalness makes it easier for others to breathe. When not being pulled towards someone, people tend to move forward on their own. This is a very instinctive reflex. When not being possessed, not being directed, not being manipulated, people will choose for themselves. The ancients said that virtuous people need no recruitment, for virtue is like fragrance. It doesn't need inviting, yet people still seek it out. Humble people often carry a sense of peace, a feeling incredibly rare in a world full of competition and insecurity. People follow humble individuals not because they are persuaded, but because they feel secure. Secure that they will not be exploited compared to others, belittled, or used as tools. This is the deepest foundation of willingness. The ancients were very clear about this. Winning someone over with words only creates superficial agreement. Winning someone over with power only creates obedience. Only winning someone over with character creates voluntary compliance. And a humble person is the embodiment of that character. In a group setting, humble people don't usually take the lead, shout slogans, or make pronouncements. But when difficulties arise, others seek them out. When a trustworthy person is needed, their opinion is sought. When responsibility is required, attention is often drawn to them. This doesn't come from tactics, it comes from a long process. Humility allows them to behave consistently. They don't waver for personal gain. They don't become fickle depending on circumstances. This stability creates a sense of security. And people always want to rely on what is secure. Humble people don't put themselves at the center either. They let others shine. They let others be recognized. When someone doesn't strive for the center position, others want to put them in the center, because there's no dominance there, only support. The ancients taught that those who aspire to be leaders are rarely followed. Those who don't aspire to be leaders often become leaders themselves. This is because no one fears them, no one envies them, and no one worries about being overshadowed by them. Throughout history, many people have gained followers not because they were loud-mouthed, but because they were steadfast. Not because they were eloquent speakers, but because they lived consistently. Humility helped them maintain that consistency. Because when they didn't need to prove anything, they weren't swayed by external opinions. People are drawn to humble individuals because they feel respected. When surrounded by boastful people, one always has to be wary, maintain their position, and protect their ego. But when with humble people, one can be themselves, and that feeling makes the bond feel natural. The ancients said that people's hearts only follow where they don't have to strain. Humble person is one who makes others not have to strain. No need to be defensive. No need to play a role. No need to compete. This voluntary loyalty is not loud. It's not immediately apparent, but it's very enduring. When faced with difficulties, people don't abandon the humble because they believe that person won't abandon them. This mutual trust is the foundation of all lasting relationships. Humble people don't use gratitude to bind others. They help without asking for it. They give without expecting anything in return. Therefore, others follow them not out of obligation, but out of respect. This respect is deeper than any bond. Ancient wisdom holds that the highest level of influence is not needing to influence. When you don't try to change anyone, don't try to manipulate anyone, and don't try to prove yourself right, others will naturally change when they are around you. Humble people don't preach, but others learn from them. No lectures are needed, just their way of life. This is what allows their influence to spread far and wide without being ostentatious. Ultimately, humble people don't need to win anyone over, because they don't put themselves in opposition to anyone. When there is no opposition, no superiority or inferiority, no imposition, people's hearts naturally gravitate towards them, like water flowing to the lowest point, and that is the most subtle power. The power to make others follow willingly, not because they are persuaded, not because they are led, but because they want to. And that willingness is the most solid foundation for winning hearts and minds. 13. Humility built over time creates credibility. Credibility creates lasting influence. This is a principle that our ancestors observed over many generations. Not all influence comes from power. Not all voices originate from position. There are people who are not in high positions, who don't appear often, but their words are always listened to, and their actions are always trusted. This is the result of credibility accumulated through persistent humility. The ancients understood that prestige cannot be built quickly. It doesn't come from a single display, a single success, or a single moment of brilliance. Prestige is the result of many instances of self-discipline, keeping one's word, maintaining one's attitude, and exhibiting consistent behavior over time. And humility is the foundation upon which prestige can flourish. Humble people don't use achievements to dominate others. They don't use knowledge to compete or assert superiority. They don't use their position to create distance. They always maintain a moderate demeanor. They don't raise their voices, they don't show off, and they don't put themselves above others. It is this stability that gradually puts others at ease. Credibility is built on that sense of security. When others see that you don't change for personal gain, that you don't change your tone when you have power, that you don't change your attitude when you have influence, they will begin to trust you. This trust doesn't come immediately, but with each repetition, it grows stronger. The ancients said that those who boast only have temporary influence, because that influence is based on emotion. Humble people, on the other hand, have lasting influence, because that influence is based on experience, the experience that this person is trustworthy, reliable, and worth listening to. Humility, when practiced consistently, helps avoid major mistakes. Overconfident people easily become complacent, dismiss other people's opinions, and believe they are always right. Humble people, on the other hand, always leave room for learning and adjustment. As a result, they make fewer serious mistakes, and with fewer mistakes, their reputation grows stronger. Ancient people placed great importance on maintaining composure before achieving success. They knew that success is the greatest test of character. A humble person, even after success, maintains their original attitude. They are not arrogant, distant, or change their tone. This is what earns them even more respect from others. Reputation isn't about what you accomplish, but about how you achieve it while maintaining your integrity. Humble people do this better than anyone else, because they don't let success inflate their ego. In a group setting, humble people are often entrusted with important tasks. Not because they are ambitious, but because everyone trusts that they will not abuse their position, not for personal gain and not for personal fame. That trust is the highest form of prestige. The ancients said that prestige is an intangible asset. It's not immediately visible, but when needed, it unleashes immense power. With prestige, a single word is enough to guide. A single attitude is enough to reassure. No lengthy explanations are needed. No extensive proof is required. Humble people build credibility through very small things. Keeping promises, admitting mistakes when wrong, not taking credit for things that aren't theirs, not blaming others when things fail. Each of these small things is like a brick. Over time, they build a solid foundation. Reputation creates lasting influence because it doesn't depend on circumstances. With reputation, you don't need to be in a high position to be heard. You don't need to speak loudly to have weight. You don't need to be frequently present to be mentioned. The ancients made a clear distinction between power and influence. Power can be lost when circumstances change, but prestige does not. It follows a person wherever they go and is valuable everywhere. Humble people often possess this kind of influence. People are willing to listen to those with authority, not out of fear, but out of trust, not out of coercion, but because they find it reasonable. Influence based on authority doesn't provoke resistance or opposition, seeps in and spreads gradually. Humility also helps maintain reputation. Arrogant people, even those with high reputations, can easily lose it. Just one wrong move, one instance of disrespecting others, and their reputation can crumble very quickly. Humble people rarely fall into that situation because they always keep themselves below their ego. The ancients said that maintaining reputation is harder than building it. Maintaining it for the long term is even harder. Humility is the anchor that prevents reputation from being swept away by the waves. In relationships, humble people are often the ones whose opinions are sought when important matters arise. Not because they speak well, but because they speak at the right time, at the right level, and have been right many times before. Lasting influence requires no fanfare. It's like an underground stream. Quiet, yet it nourishes the land. Humble people create that stream through patience and consistency. Ultimately, the ancients concluded that humility is not for the sake of praise, but for maintaining one's integrity over the long term. And when a person maintains their integrity long enough, prestige will naturally develop. Influence will naturally spread. No need to compete. No need to argue. No need to talk excessively. It's a slow path, but it's the most solid path to making a real impact on people's hearts. 14. The highest level of winning hearts is making others feel respected when they are around you. Ancient wisdom viewed this not merely as a skill in social interaction, but as the result of a mature character. When people enter a relationship with respect, their hearts will naturally open up without any coercion. Respect isn't about polite words or social gestures. It's about the feeling others get after they leave you. If, after a conversation, someone feels listened to, understood, and their dignity is preserved, then that is true respect. The ancients understood that people can suffer losses in terms of benefits, but it is very difficult to suffer losses in terms of respect. A single word that makes someone feel disrespected, belittled, or denied can ruin a long-standing relationship. Therefore, wise people always put respect above all logic. When you're around someone who truly respects you, you naturally lower your guard. There's no need to hide anything, no need to strain to protect your ego. It's in that state that your heart softens, you become approachable, and you easily bond with them. Ancient wisdom teaches that respecting others begins with not denying their feelings, whether right or wrong. Feelings are real. Wise people don't rush to correct, teach, or refute. They allow others to feel completely. When feelings are respected, then reason can take hold. Respect also means not putting yourself in a superior position, not using your knowledge to overpower others, not using your experience to make others feel inferior. Wise people always understand that everyone has their own circumstances, limitations, and worries. When they understand this, they will naturally soften their stance. The ancients said that those who make others feel insignificant are difficult to follow. Those who make others feel valued naturally attract attention. Respect is the way to make others feel valued, regardless of their position. In communication, respectful people don't interrupt. They don't cut short the flow of thought, and they don't rush to conclusions. They let others finish speaking, thinking, and expressing themselves. This is what makes the other person feel valued, a feeling rare in a world where everyone wants to speak. Ancient wisdom teaches that respect means preserving the dignity of others. It means not pointing out mistakes in public, not embarrassing others, and not using their errors to prove oneself right. Those who can do this are usually well-liked. When you're with someone who knows how to protect your dignity, you naturally want to safeguard that relationship. You know you're safe, not shamed, not humiliated. This is the foundation of a lasting bond. Respect is also shown by not imposing one's own pace of life on others. It's not about forcing them to think faster, understand more deeply, or do things exactly like you. Wise people allow differences to exist because they understand that differences are not a threat. Ancient wisdom views respect as the highest expression of humility. When you truly respect others, you no longer need to win against them, surpass them, or prove yourself right. Because at that point, the ego is no longer the center. In a group setting, the person who makes everyone feel respected is usually the one who retains their loyalty the longest. When problems arise, conflicts occur, or pressure sets in, people will remember that person because they were treated kindly in the past. The ancients said that power can make people obey, but only respect makes people stay. The staying is not for personal gain, but for a feeling. It's the feeling of being respected is one of the strongest human feelings. Those who respect others are often respected in return, not because of the law of reciprocity, but because human nature tends to reflect. When treated with kindness, people will want to reciprocate with kindness. The highest level of winning hearts and minds isn't about making others fear you. It's not about making others obey you. It's about making others feel like they can be themselves when they're with you. No need to pretend, no need to act, no need to be defensive. Ancient people considered this to be the level of wisdom attained by those who truly understood human nature. To achieve this, one needs a great deal of self-control, attentive listening, and letting go of the ego. Not everyone is ready to do this. When you enter a place and others feel at ease, when they speak with you and feel comfortable, when they leave and feel uplifted, then you don't need to do anything more to win their hearts. People's hearts will naturally gravitate towards you. It's not because you speak well, not because you're talented, but because you respect them. And in this world full of conflicts, being respected is something everyone is silently searching for. Humility doesn't make you smaller. It expands the world around you. The ancients recognized this early on. The higher a person tries to stand, the narrower their world becomes, because the higher the position.
Ow.
The more room there is, only room for ego. Conversely, those who know how to humble themselves appropriately don't become inferior, but rather see more, hear more, and connect more deeply with others. Truly strong people don't need to prove themselves. Their strength lies not in words, but in inner stability. They are not swayed by praise or criticism, nor pressured by opinions. They don't need to win to feel valuable. It is this steadfastness that makes them trustworthy. The ancients said that the more eager a person is to prove themselves right, the more insecure they are. The more a person competes for position, the less secure they truly are. Humility is not about abandoning one's abilities, but about not letting those abilities become a burden to others. Humble people enter relationships with an equal footing. No superiority or inferiority. No comparison. No imposing. Because of this, others don't need to be defensive, cautious, or play their roles. It is in this relaxed atmosphere that hearts easily open up. Maintain humility. You will win people's hearts. Because people don't like being overwhelmed. They don't like being looked down upon. They don't like being put in a weak position. Humility makes others feel respected, listened to, and allowed to be themselves. And that's what everyone longs for. The ancients understood that winning people's hearts isn't about pulling them to your side, but about creating a place where they want to stay. When you don't compete, don't fight, and don't force, others will choose you. And a voluntary choice is always more enduring than any persuasion. Wise people don't need to compete, because they have foresight. They know that the long road requires human connection, not temporary victory or defeat. Humility helps them move slowly but surely. Fewer conflicts, fewer confrontations, fewer invisible enemies. Winning people's hearts will naturally make the path easier. Not because everything will go smoothly, but because when things get tough, there will be people willing to share the burden with you. When you make mistakes, there will be people to correct you. When you're tired, there will be people by your side. That is the greatest asset in life. The ancients said that those with many relationships are not necessarily rich in compassion, but those who maintain the goodwill of others will never be alone wherever they go. Humility is the key to unlocking that. In an increasingly noisy world where everyone wants to show off, stand out, and be better than others, humility becomes a quiet strength. Not ostentatious, but it's incredibly difficult to replace. If you find this philosophy thought-provoking, please share this video with someone you cherish, and subscribe to the Simple Philosophy channel to continue your journey towards a deeper and more peaceful life each day.